I'm here at Gothberg Farms with Rhonda Gothberg. And Rhonda, I found, is a really friendly Texan. And she likes to talk, so this is really great because she has some really great stories. So what I've learned about Rhonda is that she's come from Texas through New Mexico to Anacortes. She moved to this really great property in Bow 10 years ago. She's been a licensed real estate agent for 14 years and a registered nurse since the 70s. And Rhonda started this farm, a dairy, at age 50, 7 years ago, which is a really inspiring life change, and more stories to come. So that's you.
That's me. So what kind of crazy person starts a dairy at 50?
This farm, this dairy, the cheese making is all your project.
It's my project.
This is your business.
It's my business.
Which you started with one goat.
Well,
or how did you start?
Well, you get the one goat, and then that's going okay once you learn to milk. Because if you know, like I was explaining to you earlier, the first 5 or 6 days of that, I was pretty excited to go out there with my little shiny stainless steel bucket to milk that goat, but it didn't go in the bucket. She kicked, she wore it, I wore it. There was no milk to drink. And from there, you kind of learn what you're doing. And I liked the goats so much that I wanted more goats. And so then I bought 2 or 3 more goats that were pregnant. And because goats have 2 or 3 kids, generally they have multiple births. Boom. Overnight, you look out there and there's 16 goats, and then you're making cheese and having milk and kind of getting into the lifestyle and trading cheese. It was illegal to do that because when you make cheese on your own in your home kitchen, it's illegal to share it with another person. Most of us don't know that early on. We kind of share it with our close friends and family, maybe a few coworkers. Well, we just do. And so those that tasted my cheese at that time said, oh, it was the best cheese they'd ever tasted, and they thought I could sell that. And I asked them, oh, you think really I could do that? And so it kind of evolved along.
What's your purpose of that first goat?
That first goat was to have milk for my house
and
make a little cheese.
So you didn't have, did you have farm aspirations in the beginning before you got that goat?
Well, obviously I'd already bought a 40-acre property, so, and the majority of that at that time, certainly the vast majority of that was leased out to the seed farmer next door. So I just needed a little room for my garden, which you've seen out there, my little tiny fledgling orchard, which you've seen out there that I put in. That was really about, I didn't need 40 acres, it just happened to have come with 40 acres. And it just kind of evolved from there. But when you have 40 acres, you have a lot of options. And you can start thinking, well, would I want to do crops? Would I want to do herbs? Would I want to do, And then I fell in love with goats. And I didn't know I would love livestock, especially one that required milking twice a day and feeding twice a day and kidding every year. I went commercial with 7 milking goats. Very small.
7 years ago.
7 years.
So started very
goats.
small.
Mm-hmm.
7 years, 7 goats. So tell us a story about how that evolved till today. How did you grow that, and how did it change?
Well, because you don't know what your market is. I mean, this was pre-Facebook too, so there was no mass get the word out there. This was like take your cheese in a little bag and go in the back door of the kitchen of a chef's place and drop it. I have to say, Slow Food in Edison and Cafe Adrift in Anacortes were signed up that the day I went legal, they wanted to have my cheese in their respective businesses, and I am forever grateful, and we have never missed a lick. I have been in those 2 businesses since the beginning, and the Rhododendron Cafe was pretty much at the top of that list too, although I did have to go in the back door with a cheese sample for them and introduce them to our cheese. So that's kind of where it started, and I did the Anacortes Farmers Market that first year because I got my license in August, and so I could finish out the season. I had a card table, 2 cheeses to offer, Chev and Feta, no canopy over me. They tried to put me under the eaves of the building so that I could try to stay dry. And none of this is okay anymore, but that's the way I started it. One day we had a pouring down rainstorm, and Joanne from Jalila's Cookies let me cozy into her little tent at one point, and I have never forgotten. I love her to this day because she got me out of the rain with my card table and 2 cheeses.
And that's how you started.
And that's how we started. Close to 40 probably.
And how many cheeses are you making now? I know I asked you about if you had a list.
20.
About 20 cheeses.
Because some are seasonal. You know, Greek yogurt is seasonal. The queso fresco, queso blanco, seasonal. Ricotta, seasonal. So we don't have all the cheeses all the time.
What makes cheese seasonal?
The nature of the milk changes over the season. Early lactation milk, mid lactation milk, late lactation milk. There are different behaviors of that milk in the cheese pot, so to speak. You know, it's a vat, of course. It's not like my kitchen pot anymore. But because the fats and the proteins and the somatic cells, those kind of things do change over the season, and it does affect the different qualities that the cheese imparts. I like certain seasons of milk better for certain cheeses than others, and so that's what we do. I don't make a cheese I don't love to eat.
What gave you the idea to come up with making your own grain, and then how did you formulate that particular grain that you use for the goats?
So you know, I was buying a commercial, just, you know, Purina goat chow right off the shelf, and it's pelleted and it's got molasses, and you really can't tell what's in it. You can see little specks sometime of yellow or something that might probably be corn, but you don't really know what your animal's getting. And they ate it, and they did just fine on it. I just didn't love it. And a fellow goat friend or 2 or 3, they mixed their own grain mixes, you know, so everybody had all these Rubbermaid tubs, and it was 2 scoops of this and a scoop of that, and you know, and so I started mixing my own grain myself. And so then you have this whole lineup of Rubbermaid tubs, and you got to mix, you know, all this stuff, and invariably it would be milking time and there'd be no grain made, and so I'd be over there hurrying up trying to mix up a big tub of grain, and it was fairly labor intensive and a little unwieldy. And so I went to talk to Conway Feed, because we're fortunate enough in our area to have our own feed mill called Conway Feed, just down there on I-5. So I went to talk to Scott, who was then the manager, who's now actually the owner, which is a nice tightening of the link in our food supply chain, that a guy from LaConner owns our own feed mill. I think that's really cool.
Local, right?
And they're really nice people. So I went and talked to Scott about my grain mix, and he's like, well, I don't know, and you know, we can do it for you, but you have to take, you know, what was it, 1 or 2 tons at a time, and they wouldn't put it in the bags, you know, and that would just be their truck comes and delivers it into some sort of receptacle. And I was like, yeah, this kind of sounds like a big dairy thing to me. Except, you know, keep in mind, I'm still milking like 7 goats. I don't need, you know, by the ton of food. And so I got a friend to go in on it with me, and she said, well, she would take, if they would mix a ton, she would take half and I would take half, but they'd have to put it in the 50-pound sacks. And he said, okay, he would do that, but he wanted my vet to sign off on it. So I went and had my vet review my recipe, and he made recommendations as to which mineral mix he thought would be best based on my feeding program, because he does know what that is. So my vet had done that and said, yeah, I think this is a good mix for goats. This looks decent. And so then I took that back to Scott, and he said, okay, well, I'm going to send it then to our PhD animal nutritionist. And I said, okay, great idea. So he did that. She approved it for goats. He started mixing it for just me and this other friend of mine. Well, then other people started coming in the grain place looking for our grain to see if they could buy it. And as it turns out, a lot of people tend to like our grain mix because you can see what's in it. There's no molasses. There's no hidden surprises. There's nothing in it that you and I couldn't eat if you didn't mind the shells on the black oil sunflower seeds in your morning cereal. So that's how it came about. Long story. I've had that for a long time. And it's got my name on it. It's called Gothberg Goat. Anyone can buy it. I don't get a royalty. What I get for it is I get the convenience of 50-pound sacks. It's generally there unless they're sold out, which becomes a problem, but hardly ever happens. But anyway, I get the convenience of getting in a 50-pound sack. Other people buying it, you know, keeps it rotated and fresh for all of us. And the goats milk well on it. They're healthy.
Yes, I'm interested in how your nursing background blends with your cheese making.
Actually, I think quite well, honestly, because my goal is to provide a delicious, nutritious, sustainably produced product for my local eating community. But nutrition to me is quite important because I know, we are what we eat kind of a thing. Raw milk, we talked about that just a little bit. I drink my milk raw. I'm inoculated to everything on this farm. I believe my milk is nice and safe and clean, but I don't have every little drop tested, and I'm not licensed to sell raw milk. I do sell raw milk cheeses, however, that have been aged 60 days or more. In my case, they're generally aged 1 year or more, but the law is 60 days. My personal belief is that pregnant women, young children, older people, probably shouldn't have straight raw milk. I don't think the cheese is as bad or as potentially risky. I don't think my milk is risky, but I just think if there is something in there that could harm you or your fetus, or you're on immunosuppressant drugs because you're a cancer patient, why would you take the chance? Milk can become contaminated post-pasteurization. I'm the first one to understand that. You need a fly to fall in it, or somebody's dirty hand, or some sick person to sneeze over the things can happen. Things happen in the food chain. We know this. I just think reasonable precautions are a good thing for a person to take. Well, our yogurt, I strain it all down and make it all into the Greek style yogurt. So it's a very concentrated source of protein and calcium and fats and some other good things in there. But most of the whey has been taken off of it. And so it's just a nice, thick, rich, creamy, delicious yogurt. I have had a number of cancer patients over the years now that is the only food they seem to be able to tolerate. They don't throw it up. It doesn't hurt their throat. It seems appealing to them, and they don't do anything to it. They don't want honey on it. They don't want it. They just need the plain yogurt. It's the only food that they seem they can keep down. And it almost makes me tearful because I'm just so excited that I can provide this for somebody in less than a good time in their life.
Is that something that you can buy in the grocery store, or do you have to come here to your farm to get the yogurt?
No, it's only through the farmers markets and through me. It's not at any outlets at this point. And even during the season, because it's fairly labor intensive the way I do it, I generally only make it about once a month, sort of like May to September, and it freezes really well. And so myself and several of my customers buy the yogurt in bulk and freeze it, and so that we have it throughout the year and from make to make.
You were talking about the farmers markets. A lot of things I didn't know about the farmers markets, the business side, the product sales, the fees. It's not just signing up to do a farmers market, showing up with a table and then leaving. Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit more about what you've learned about the farmers market, how they really operate, and how you function in the farmers market to be successful, what it takes for you to do a farmers market.
Okay. Well, in my post-retirement life someday, if that ever happens, I'm going to be a Saturday farmers market shopper. It's a fun place to go. There are fabulous products. There's great people. There's fresh produce. There's delicious cheeses. There's meats. There's wines. There's eggs. There's crafts. There's lunch. There's breakfast. It's a fun place to be. It's a very community place to be because the people from your local community are there. It's a really fun place to be. And that's on the front of the table. Behind the table, it's a little bit different sometimes. We're there because we love it and because we love our customers, don't get me wrong, but it's not as easy as it may seem. My day for the farmers market starts at about 5 a.m. and it ends that night about 6 p.m. And that's just for a 5-hour market and that's just to pack for the market, get the coolers ready, get to the market, get set up, stand there all day, talk to you about cheese or anything else you want to talk about, because I am a Texan and I do like to talk, and I do know that my topics kind of drift sometimes, but I think the people are so interesting at the market, we get the best conversations. Mm-hmm. But it's exhausting. And we're there no matter what. I mean, it can be pouring down rain, it can be snowing, and we're there, and the customers may say, I think I'm going to stay inside today and drink coffee and sit by the fire. And so we go home and, you know, we didn't have a very good day, and we prepared for you. The goats were milked, the cheese was made, the coolers were packed, the van was packed, the gas was spent, the fees were spent.
The employees were paid.
The employees were paid, and we didn't make enough to kind of pull out of the driveway today. And that can be disheartening when that happens on occasion. Kind of the way it is. No, you know, my friend used to tell me, Rhonda, if every restaurant in town knew their busy moments, they would they would all be rich and no one would ever close. So I do get it. It's just part of being in business, but it's a little bit of a tricky thing with the markets sometimes because there is so much work that goes into getting to them. And then there's a fee to join the market. There's a weekly fee to be at the market. For me, as a provider of a dairy product, I must also pay a fee to every county that I am a part of and be inspected then by that county. I'm inspected by the state dairy inspector once a quarter. There are a lot of inspections and fees, and I don't mind the inspections. I don't mind them at all. I'm a big food safety advocate. I just really object to the way that everybody is, not the state. The state has not been bad on their fees, actually. It's the counties, and everybody's charging double, quadruple, quintuple amounts of fees because they think the farmers markets are the new cash cows for them to save their jobs over. And it's pretty disheartening to me. It's not a collegial, let's work through this, let's see what we really need to make this work. It's a, here's our fee, and if you want to be in our place, then that's just what you pay. And you know, if you want to do an extra market, say Snohomish County, I paid $175 to do the Everett market, just to the county. That didn't count the market's fees, which are another $500-600. And then I wanted to do a couple of extra special events in Snohomish County, and it was going to cost me $75 per day per event to do the market. Well, you can't pay that, and then the booth fee. And so it really restricts small businesses, what it does. We're very restricted financially by these market fees by counties.
Do you have to pay for the dairy inspections, or is that part of the fee?
That's the county fee. That's in the fee. That at the beginning of the market, someone comes around and makes sure we have a hand washing station and that our product's on ice and that kind of thing. So they come around generally once. And then the state inspector, that is a lower fee. She comes every quarter and calibrates all my thermometers and looks in all my cabinets and under my sinks and in my corners and in my closets and in my cheese aging room. I mean, she does a very thorough inspection once a quarter, and that one is very inexpensive. I don't get it.
So Rhonda is really getting into social media. And I know this.
That's how we met.
It's how we connected. So I know you're on Facebook, and I know you're on Twitter. I don't know where else you are, but I'm interested to know how you got started into that social community, and then you can tell people where you are in Facebook and where you are on Twitter and all that. But how did you go? How did you connect?
Kicking and screaming. I have younger children, and I have one especially techie son who's 23, especially techie son. And they were all telling me, you know, oh, Mom, you should do this, you should do this. And I was like, I don't have time. That's just a waste of time. People are talking about, you know, drinking coffee on Facebook. I don't care about them drinking coffee. And so I just don't have time for that. I don't want to learn anything new. Well, then everybody was sort of talking about, we talked to this cousin and this friend and that friend on Facebook. And so I was like, well, they know something I don't know. And so I went on to Facebook to see what it was about. And I was like, oh, that's kind of fun. You know, some of the cousins I haven't talked to in years, and they're on Facebook, and there's kind of like this little discussion going on. I thought, well, no, that's kind of fun. And then you look down the bottom left hand of the page, and it's like, put your business page on. I was like, oh. So I clicked on it, and it's like, oh, upload a picture. Well, I'll just put my logo in, and boom, in 10 minutes, your business is on Facebook. I was pretty amazed. I really was pretty amazed. But then I thought, you know, nobody really cares what I have to say, but it actually has been a lot of fun. I have enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the personal side of it with friends and family, but I have really enjoyed connecting with my customers there because we can have discussions. I can talk about what cheeses we're making today. I can talk about the kidding season. I can talk about things that are interesting. I can, if I find an article that I find interesting, I can just like post the link to it and it's just done. Read it or don't read it. I try not to tell you if I had sugar in my coffee though.
Thank God.
I find, and they're not the same people at all, really, between your Facebook and your Twitter. They're really not the same. The Facebook is more engaging. It's more long-term. They, a lot more information sometimes but what I find on the Twitter side is a little younger and a whole lot faster thinking. Not that I'm saying people on Facebook are slow, because they're not by any stretch, but the Twitter people, it's quick when you only have those 140 characters.
I was going to say it.
And it rolls and scrolls really fast. And so the ideas, the opportunity for idea interchange is really quick. You don't have to wait for somebody to just get back to it. And then with all the smartphone people out there, these guys are tweeting from their big combines in the soybean fields in India. I think it's so cool that it's just real-time kind of information sometimes, and real-time people doing real-time things. And I have really actually enjoyed Twitter, and I didn't know that I would. And like my son says, well, now, Mom, okay, you got it.
And I can vouch for that. I think you got it. So you're on Facebook as?
Facebook.com/Gothberg Farms, Twitter.com/Gothberg Farms. Pretty.
At Gothberg Farms.
At Twitter at Gothberg Farms, right? Well, anyway, if you go to Twitter and do the search button and put in Gothberg Farms, you'll find us.
You'll find you.
And the same thing on Facebook. Look for the purple go ahead.
That's right. And your website.
And my website is www.gothbergfarms.com, and it's set up as a sort of a blog, which is more just like personal ramblings, but then there's the conventional buttons at the top to talk a little bit about the farm and the goats and the cheeses. And my daughter did a really cool Google interactive map, and she put a pin for every place you can find our cheese now. And so she researched every one of them, and so if you click on the pin, it will give you the business name and their phone number and their business hours and their website. And she did a beautiful job. And my daughter does my website, and she's done a really beautiful job for me. I appreciate it. Well, and my daughter does all of my graphic stuff for me. She devises and did all kind of little handouts and brochures and my stand-up signs for my cheese tasting and farmers market signs that are on my table and stuff. She does all that for me.
It's a family affair.
It is, really. That's what she says, Mom, this is because she lives in Texas, so she said, Mom, this is a way I can help you without being there. And truly, it is a help. And then my younger son, the one that, got me into the iPhone and Facebook and Twitter and dragging me into the Mac world and, those kind of things.
Yeah.
Kids are good. We have 5 adult children.
Roy helps around the farm fixing things, but he's really hands-off with the goats pretty much and the cheese making. He pretty much.
He feeds the goats. He feeds every evening. He feeds and waters. And he fixes everything that's broken. When we expanded the barn, he did all the construction for the new milk room and the new parlor. So he fixes, builds, and creates almost anything needed. He keeps all the tractors up and running and all that kind of stuff going. This morning we were having a problem with one of our GFI outlets, so he got that all troubleshot and fixed up. And so, all that stuff he's great at. But no, he doesn't milk. He doesn't make cheese. He doesn't do farmers markets. That part's just not his thing. He tells people he really likes the goats. He just doesn't always like being so tied to the dairy, because it's a huge commitment. It's milking twice a day, every day. It's farmers markets for, 25 to 33 weeks, depending on which market you're at. That's every weekend of my time. It's always busy, and then you think you got a breather, and it's kidding season and the babies start arriving again. And last year we had 47 baby goats born here, and so it's kind of busy.
Describe your average day as a farmer.
My average day is to get up between 5 and 5:30, but in the peak of the summer season, that really pushes more toward the 4:30 mark, and that's when my husband gets up for work anyway for his job, so it kind of works out. But there's just a lot to do, and the only little corner of my day that I can fairly reliably get for myself is a little bit of time in the morning. And so that I like to get my breakfast, I like to get my coffee. That's when I like to do my Facebook and Twitter, catch up on email and a few of those kind of things. And then, because once I hit the barn, I don't know when I'm coming out for the most part. You go out, you do chores, you do what needs done. And even with the employees here that help with so many of the milkings, there's still a lot to do. Feeding, health assessments, get this done, get that done, come back in, get the shower, because you must be completely showered and shampooed and cleaned up to go into the cheese room with special clothes, special shoes, special aprons, special hairnet. It's not uncommon for me to change clothes 5 or 6 times a day and never leave the farm.
Your dairy farm is a lifestyle.
It is definitely a lifestyle.
And it doesn't sound like there is really a day off. How do you take time for yourself? How do you take vacations? How do you work that into into such a demanding lifestyle?
There essentially are no days off, really. I had a Sunday off. Last Sunday was the first day off I think I've had in 25 weeks. And so I was pleased to have it, but that doesn't mean I didn't go to the barn and see things and do things, because I did. But Catherine milked that day, Sarah did the cheese that day, and I did not have a farmer's market. So it was, when you just have to feed in a day, that's a day off. When I take a vacation, it means generally 3 people step up to the plate to try to replace me. That's what I tell people when I leave. It takes 3 or 4 women to replace me every time I leave town. And they do it, and they do a really great job of it. But I don't ask that of them very often.
It sounds like you have a really special relationship with the employees that you have, the 2 gals that work with you.
And I have a special relationship with all. There are 5 employees here, and I do.
There's 5?
There are 5. Debbie and Sarah have been with me the longest. Debbie on the animal side, Sarah on the cheese side. I've been in business 7 years. Sarah's been with me 6 of those years. Debbie's been with me 5 of those years. So we have evolved into quite a little kind of a barn dance of, getting the jobs done and pulling together and making everything happen here. Sarah's here every Saturday making cheese while I'm at the farmer's market every Saturday. Been that way for 6 years. The first year I did all of it myself, all of the milking, all of the cheese making, all of the feeding, all of the little marketing, all of the everything. And most of us probably start out that way, but you can't sustain it very long. I have 2 other women that help with the weekend milkings, and then 1 man that helps clean the pens.
Do you ever get discouraged?
I get asked that a lot. I think this time of year, I would be more likely to say I'm just tired and I got sick last week. I don't think I get so discouraged. Sometimes it's a little frustrating when you've gone to the farmer's market, you've paid all these fees, and you don't sort of like make bank that day. It is discouraging on those days. They don't happen very often, thank goodness, but when they do, that is discouraging. When you feel like you're bringing the customer what they've sort of asked for and then they don't show up, it's a little bit sad. But no, discouraged in the overall, I look out at this and I look at this farm and I look where I get to live and I look at the people that surround my life on the farm and off, and there's nothing to compare it to. I wouldn't know these people if I wasn't in agriculture. And women in agriculture it's one step more removed, and women in dairy is still 1 step more removed. And there are more and more women running farms now. I think I saw the last statistic, we're maybe up to like 30% now, which I thought was a high number. But I'm not regarded as a dairy person within the county because around us are the big cow people, and they don't really see this as a real dairy, and they don't see me as a real dairy person, but I have the same inspector they do. It's okay. It's okay. We all have a place. What surprised me the most on the positive is how much I would love the connection with the goats. And then subsequently with the cheese. I mean, that cheese is heart and soul food. It really is. And then the people that I've met. That's the part I didn't really anticipate quite how good that good really would be. And then the part I anticipated the least or misunderstood was the time commitment. I did not understand 12 to 18 hours a day for months and months and months and months and months on end with no relief in sight. I did not anticipate that. And setting it up, I thought I did a pretty thorough job of the business planning and the financial, accounting of this and that. I worked with my CPA person up in Bellingham. I talked to the retired executive people. I did a lot of prep work to try to make sure I wasn't missing things, because I really didn't know how to do this outside of a hospital environment, because that's where I'd been working for the past 20-some years. And I tell people now, do all of that, do your best work you can, and then double it, because it's going to cost twice as much as you ever thought it would. And I don't know where those numbers come from, but they come out of somewhere. And I'm not a poor planner. At this point, we've probably, because we've been here a while and we've got our property fairly inexpensively in the scheme of things in today's market, but probably without fail, just to get that dairy up and running right now today, if you wanted to go do it just like I've done it with the same animals I have and the same equipment I have, it'll cost you somewhere between $250,000 $300,000. So it's not inexpensive by any stretch, and that's building the barn and acquiring the animals and acquiring all this great dairy equipment from the Netherlands, which is fabulous equipment. We've got 3 complete farmers market setups, because if you do 3 markets in one day, that's what you have to have. And, so it really is, there's just a lot of expenses that you just, I don't think, could anticipate. And now with, and livestock feeds are just, they're going up like by the day. They're getting harder and harder to get because we're using food for fuel, like corn for fuel. It's taking it away from the food supply, so that it's increasing the prices of our grains and so forth. Alfalfa, I was having a little bit of trouble this year even finding alfalfa. We had a strange weather year for alfalfa because of the cold and the wet and the late season. But several of the farms I called that are known to do alfalfa said they wouldn't have any because it was all going to China and Japan. And so there goes our food supply right from our own state, and it's feeding China and Japan, and I can't get it, 200 miles away, so it's kind of frustrating. There's just a lot of issues behind the scenes that people just don't realize. We don't just come to the market clean in our kind of cutest clothes, with product we're extremely proud of. There's a lot.
Would you have any advice in particular for women who would like to be farmers or get involved in dairy or agriculture in general?
I would like to highly encourage them, because I think the women I know in agriculture so far have been exceptionally cool women. They're motivated, they're driven, they have a heart, they have passion. And that's not to say that the guys don't have it. They do. But the women that I have met in agriculture, particularly in dairy, and a lot of us small dairy people have tended to be women, it just adds a different element to the table.
How do you feel your reception's been as a woman in dairy?
My reception to the public has been really good. I think my reception to fellow dairymen and within my geographic area have been a little less than warm. Not untoward, not mean, just totally disinterested.
Is there anything else that you would like people to know about you or Gothberg Farms?
Just that actually I love my animals, I love my people, and I love what I do. And I feel blessed to get to do it. That's all. It's simple.